Thank you. And first, Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member, I want to thank you for including my amendment that would increase penalties for reckless interference with wildfire suppression activities in the en-bloc agreement. I very much appreciate your support, and I hope that this amendment will also receive bipartisan support. As you may know, over 20 million people are victims of forced labor or human trafficking globally. In 2015, the U.S. National Human Trafficking Resource Center reported over 5,500 domestic human trafficking cases and received about 22,000 calls to their TIP hotline. Sadly, over 1,600 of those cases involved children. We must do more to ensure that our railways, airways, and roadways are not conduits of human trafficking. That is why I was so pleased to see that Chairman Schuster included Section 403 in the underlying bill, which I understand that our colleague Ms. Titus spearheaded. I strongly support this language that will require flight attendants to receive training in recognizing and reporting suspected human trafficking to law enforcement. My amendment would simply add ticket counter agents, gate agents, and other airline employees whose jobs require regular interaction with passengers to also receive training on recognizing and responding to potential human trafficking. Alerting law enforcement will help to ensure that potential trafficking can be properly investigated by trained law enforcement officials. It will also ensure that those guilty of human trafficking can be interdicted. And it could also save the lives of victims who may be too scared to speak up. As you may know, the Department of Homeland Security already has a voluntary program in place called the Blue Lightning Initiative, intended to train airline personnel to identify and report on potential human trafficking. However, I understand that only a handful of air carriers have signed up since Blue Lightning was launched in 2013. My amendment would simply ensure that airline employees who are best positioned to help fight human trafficking have the training they need to appropriately report it. I urge you to support my amendment, and I yield back the balance of my time.
I thank the gentlelady. I thank the gentlelady for offering her amendment. The AIR Act currently has provisions requiring flight attendants to receive training on how to recognize and respond to potential human trafficking victims. We have no opposition on this amendment at this point. Any other members care to be heard on this amendment?
Mr. Chairman?
Who's calling me? Oh, Ms. Comstock.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would also like to support this amendment. I know there might be some issues about jurisdiction or things, but I would hope whatever we can work out in support of this. And I had spoken to Ms. Titus a little earlier, too, so appreciate expanding this where we can. Thank you.
No opposition to it, really. Mr. DeFazio is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Norton. I thank the gentlelady for bringing this forward. We do know that this is a route for human traffickers, and I think this is an excellent amendment, and I really, really support her advocacy on this issue. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other members wish to be heard? None. Any amendments? Yes, Mr. Sanford.
I just point of clarification. Doesn't this move, Delta attendant there at the gate office into sort of a de facto quasi-law enforcement or informant role? I mean, isn't this a mixing of roles in imposing this additional duty into somebody that's in the private sector? I'd like to get a little bit more clarification on that.
Ms. Brownley, if you want to answer that.
Well, I think we can look into that. I think that if they're employees of the airlines, they're culpable if they're not reporting and are trained. And I think so. I think it's important that anyone who has contact with passengers that understand human trafficking and can help to identify that, to simply report it to law enforcement, and from there law enforcement takes over. It's just a simple reporting.
Would the gentleman yield? The underlying bill does require this for flight attendants, so the airlines are going to have to develop a training module for this. That's in the underlying bill. So this would just say other people who are going to come in contact with the flying passengers would have the same training that the flight attendants get, which will just basically alert them. You know, it's just like what TSA uses, like they're sweating, they look weird, they're doing this, they're doing that. Then you call law enforcement. So it's not putting them in a position of law enforcement. It's like a teacher calling and saying, "Gee, I think this kid might have been abused." It's the same.
But I mean, if you look at the TSA program, it's been proven to be surprisingly ineffective in terms of actually reading people's body languages. There was actually a GAO study on that very front, and now we're going to cast the person checking in umpteen different bags with the role of trying to read the same time while they're measuring the weight of the bag. I mean, I think it's great intentions with regard to this amendment. But again, it's another authority, it's another responsibility being placed on that person who's trying to check in all this stuff, and now they're going to have to try and read body language. If they didn't get it right, there's some degree of culpability. I struggle with that.
Well, again, I think, clearly they have their responsibilities, but if they are noticing something that looks odd or strange, that may be suspect, I believe that it's better to report it than not to report it. It's a safer road, I think, to travel. And again, as the ranking member explained, it's just simply reporting to law enforcement. The facts may not be there ultimately, but that's for law enforcement to make that decision.
Gentlemen, yield back. Anybody else wish to be recognized on this? Are there any amendments to the amendment? Seeing none, all in favor of the Brownley Amendment number 39, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? No. Appears to the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. And Mr. Sanford? Thank you, Mr. Sanford.